I would like to continue with our Tour du Monde and jump from Latin America to Africa. Roland Decourvet, you are the former CEO of Nestlé, not in Africa, but in China. You are in the Greater China region. You have founded in 2022 a company called Alpha Talents. Alpha Talents is an impact-first investment company supporting the creation and growth of profitable and sustainable impact-centric agribusiness ecosystems in Africa. You have a lot of experience on working with Africa, and I would like to invite you also for your opening statement, looking a bit at sustainability in Africa.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm used to stand, so if you don't mind, just stay there, it's easier. Thanks. I'll be a little bit, not being a professor, I'm much less polite than my friend here, so I'll be a bit more provocative if you don't mind, and that could trigger some interesting discussions, but happy to entertain that. So the first thing is word sustainability. If you combine in the same sentence sustainability in Africa, I'd like just to start with these three great contradiction or provocative statements which I believe do not make it very sustainable. Number one, I just checked on Google 10 minutes ago, the latest number of public aid to Africa is 2023, was $73 billion. Okay? So in average, you have about $40 billion. Last 2 years was more. But let's say $40–50 billion of public aid, mostly from Europe, the US, a bit Asia, going into Africa every year. That's not sustainable. By the way, with what kind of payback? Many of us have been working for companies where you are asked to go back to your board, to your shareholders regarding return on investment. The public aid, the development aid into Africa, is not working, that's clear. I'm not saying nothing's working, but overall it's not working. And it's obscenely high amount of money, which I think is not sustainable. The second thing is the total amount. So Africa is 20% of the world population. The overall private investments going into Africa is 3%. So you have 3% of the world investments feeding 20% of the population. That's not sustainable. Third, not sustainable is you have 1.5 billion people now, and everybody says that in 25 years it will be 3 billion. So if you think we have an immigration crisis today, this is nothing, okay? This is nothing. And this is coming big time. And what's the solution? Last time I checked, I haven't heard much. I believe that quickly, you see that's my first point, the solutions for Africa is not aid, is not charity, is not feeling sorry for our sins of the past, which are plentiful, fair enough, even though as Swiss we didn't colonize, but we helped the colonizers, so let's not be hypocrites. The point is what Africa needs is investments. Is not aid, but truly investments. The second part is what Africa needs is an industrial revolution. So we come from a country here, let's all agree, for those who forgot, that up to 200 years ago, we were one, if not the poorest country in Europe. And where we are today, I believe it's mostly thanks to two things. One is industrial revolution. Second is education. The overall macro system in Africa hasn't changed in 100 or even more 200 years. You know, what happens in the previous model, we Europeans went to Africa, stole raw materials and brought it back to Europe. Today, there's some improvement, we're paying for it. Okay, nice improvement, so we don't steal anymore, we pay for it, but the model hasn't changed. The model is still we buy raw materials, we process it, and we resell it. Okay? So what Africa needs is an industrial revolution, which links to the third point, is important to process and transform. And that's you could see here the logo, that's a company we bought and of which I'm the chairman, which is basically the world leader in processing quinine or quinine, which is the ultimate original medicine against malaria, originally coming from Peru. But right now, 90% of these trees are in the Congo region of Kivu, and we bought this company. So the point here, this is a very good example. So this is the bark, you see the picture, and this is the finished medicinal product. So you have a small region in Africa which has today 90% of the worldwide trees, so monopoly of the resource. There's only one factory, which we bought, which basically only processed 25% of the crop. 75% of this goes all the way to India, is being processed into that, and shipped back to Africa at 10 to 20 times the price. 90% of the resources in Africa, 90% of the patients who suffer from malaria are in Africa, but in between, you have 10,000 kilometers one way, process, 10,000 kilometers come back. It just doesn't make any sense. You need to transform locally. The fourth point is importance to control the value chain. When you invest, building a factory is the easy part. The challenging part, anybody would tell you, is how you sustain the supply to your factory. So don't just invest in factory, invest in breeding, invest in farming, educate your planters, and so on. Don't just look. In Europe, you don't look at the entire supply chain because it's been developed over centuries. Over there, you need to build the supply chain. Fifth, investors need to add real added value. How many times I've been in boards of people saying they're adding value, but apart from signing a check, they hardly know that Africa is as 54 countries, not to mention that being in an environment where it's 40 degrees and it smells not so nice is a bit of a challenge for them. So when you are investing in this kind of part of the world, invest with people who know what they're talking about, who know basically the industry. So for example, in our company, everybody is an operator in the investment side. So it's not just about, again, feeling good or telling people to do something that you haven't done yourself. Six is the environment is difficult. That's not for the faint-hearted. That's fair. And the last point is quickly, you hear way too much talk about country risk, and there's so many different types of ranking. Switzerland is always on the top. By the way, yesterday at ETH, we were 300-400 meters from a place in Zurich. I'm sure you heard about it, called Paradeplatz. And there's a small bank called Credit something, which didn't end up too well. So that's in the country which is number one ranking. So what I'm trying to say is obviously it's more risky in Africa than in Switzerland, but let's not be hypocrites. There's plenty of crooked people in this country. Our prisons are also full, they're not empty, and they're not just full with foreigners, they're also full with people who don't follow the law. So I'm not downplaying my country, I'm just saying let's not say this is all bad and we are all good. We have a few examples recently to remind us of being careful. But what I'm trying to say is the business model risk is very important. So we have this factory not just in Africa, not just in Congo, in the Kivu region, which, if you read the papers, is a bit of a challenge these days. But however, we are in a region where 90% of the world resource is there. That's a huge advantage. We are the only factory in the entire continent who can do this kind of extraction. Your market, meaning the patients, unfortunately, the people suffering from malaria is not going down, it's going up because of population growth and other points. And the competition, because of some medical, which I'm not going to go into, the competition is basically facing some big headwind because the mosquitoes are resistant to it. So you can be in a very difficult environment with a high country risk, but your business model can basically make your point very strong. I think that's important to make a distinction. So finally, again, please think about investments. The immigration crisis we are facing in Europe is not going to go away, it's going to go much, much bigger. And as long as our African friends don't have a job there, they will come here. So let's make sure that we create more jobs there. Thank you.